Welcome to Leading at a Higher Level. This is Mark Forsyth, and today we're joined by Dan Wolf, CEO of Cape Air. Thanks for coming on the show, Dan.
Fantastic, Mark. It's great to be here.
So let me just give a little background. And you're a very busy man. So you're on the board of many of the region's most important organizations, both nonprofit and for-profit. So that's great. Serving your community is key. In 2010, 2012, 2014, you represented Cape Cod and the Island in the Senate of Massachusetts. Great public servant.
Amazing privilege, and it's an amazing district, as you know.
Yeah, it is. It is. And Cape Air is celebrating your 30th year anniversary. That's fantastic.
And by extension, because we are now Nantucket Airlines also,
That's
it's
right.
really our 35th year, because
Okay.
Nantucket Airlines started 5 years before. So we've really been at this out here for 35 years. Hard
That's
to believe.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you've got a lot going on. You just took delivery in Italy of your new Tecnam Traveler. Did I say that right?
You did?
All right.
Yep. I can't say it in Italian, so I'm not going to go there.
That's good. And then you are going to be the first commercial airline to operate an all-electric aircraft.
We are in the running to be that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of companies are thinking we want to be the first, but I think we're in a great position to do that.
It sounds like it. That's such a cool plane. So that's
It's going to revolutionize air travel.
It is.
The whole transition from carbon fuel to, it's going to revolutionize all modes of transportation, but certainly air travel.
And hopefully all of us will be flying your new year-round service between New York City and Nantucket, and you just announced additional service from the Vineyard and Hyannis to New York City year-round.
We experimented last winter with really Nantucket to JFK, and it was a success. So we are actually going to extend that to year-round, but also include Martha's Vineyard in.
It was a success because I was on it a lot. And
Good.
I thank you for
Thank you for making it a success.
It's fantastic to have that to New York City.
Thank you, Mark.
Especially for, I'm a virtual corporate worker, so I travel all the time. So, and then this caught me by surprise because I didn't know Quincy had a regional airport, but you're going to offer service to Chicago.
From Quincy, Illinois. Not Quincy, Mass.
Oh, I was wondering.
So one of the nuances you pick up is the cities south of Boston, they say Quincy, as opposed to the Z, which there isn't.
Okay.
And when you go to Illinois and say Quincy, you got to say it as a soft C, not a Z.
Good.
But Quincy, Illinois, up to Chicago.
Thank you for that clarification, because A, I was thinking that's a long flight, and B, I said I don't think Quincy has an airport.
The Quincy here doesn't.
Yeah.
Quincy does, and we're currently doing Decatur, Illinois, into Chicago. So we've been in O'Hare over a year now.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you service how many locations now in your whole system?
36 locations. We're expanding. We're starting Portland, Maine, to Boston, which will be great for Nantucket folks because you'll be able to fly Nantucket, Boston, Portland, Maine. Portland, Maine is sort of an up-and-coming, hip, really cool city. So we're excited to do that. We're starting that in the middle of September. So
how many employees does it take to make your operation fly?
We have about between 800 and 900 employees. Some of it's seasonal. There's an ebb and flow, especially here in our New England market. Our second biggest region is in the Caribbean, and we have a couple hundred employees there. And of course, you know, that region is still in recovery from the hurricanes that happened almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we were very strong down there. We've been part of the recovery, and we're doing really well in the Caribbean region as well. A lot of people from here fly us there in the off season.
Oh yeah. Again, I've been on that flight too. It makes me feel good to be on a Cape Air flight going into Tortola. I feel like I know
same
the
airplane,
carrier.
same pilot, same carrier, and same phone number when you have an issue. You call the CEO.
That's right. That's good. That's good. So having said all that, very busy man, very busy operation. Going back to your Nantucket story, what is it?
Well, I learned to fly on Cape Cod in 1977, so I've been at this for 42 years. And one of the most fun flights we had when I was a student pilot back in the late 70s was coming to Nantucket. So my introduction to Nantucket was flying here as a student pilot. The interesting contrast between then and now is you would take off from Chatham, which is where I learned to fly, and at night you would look south and there was nothing, black hole. And you'd navigate here and the airport lights would come on and you'd land. Now when you look at the horizon from the Cape, you actually almost see a city glow from Nantucket. So to have watched over 42 years how the island has grown and some of the development pressures, good and bad, that it's put on the island. But I've been at it 42 years. On the way over today, I was thinking, gee, how many landings have I done at Nantucket? And I've probably done tens of thousands of landings here.
Yeah.
So my relationship to the island is through the airport and through transportation.
That's great. Well, you're providing an invaluable service, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's key. So with all that you've got going on and trying to keep your vision alive and relevant and refreshed, how do you do that?
I have always had a passion for flying, passion for transportation in general, and a passion for people. And the reason this journey for me over the past 30 years has been such a dream is it includes all of that. It's the transportation wonk, figuring out what serves the community the best. It's still being able to get in an airplane and fly, which is a true blessing and gift. I love doing that. And then it's dealing with communities and people and customers and employees. So it's all of those passions rolled into one, and it keeps me going, and it will keep me going.
That's good. And your vision is to get your passengers where they want to be as quickly and easy as possible.
Cape Air is really a niche carrier, and we compete with big airlines on some of our markets. In the Caribbean, for example, to St. Thomas and St. Croix, we're competing with JetBlue and some of the other major airlines. Up here, seasonally, as you know, Mark, the big airlines put a lot of capacity into Nantucket.
Yep.
And so the niche that we serve is high frequency, great service. Some of the listeners and watchers today will be thinking, well, wait a minute, 4 years ago they lost my bag. When you're the sole transportation link, there are always stories.
Right.
But we work really hard to do a great job doing it. Yeah. And it's high frequency. The real success to us is that on a busy day in the summer, we will have as many as 50 flights between Boston and Nantucket. And that's just that one market. Of course, we're also serving Hyannis and New Bedford and the Vineyard as well from Nantucket. So that the frequency of service on those markets makes it a really convenient option when you're looking to get on and off the island.
It's true. Well, because of your size, you can be nimble, right?
We can be nimble, and we have 98 airplanes in the fleet.
Yeah.
Obviously, not all of them coming to and from Nantucket.
Right.
We have 4 different regions we're serving in now. But we have enough airplanes to provide frequency that really translates into great service.
Well, so a key element to leading at a higher level is obviously having a clear vision and making sure your people understand that. And I feel as a passenger, that's evident.
You intentionally did that as a pun, right? Leading at a high level.
Exactly. It's a good one. So another key element of leading at a higher level is treating your people right. And I understand that you're an employee-owned organization. What does that look like? What does that mean to your employees?
Well, we've been at this for about 30 years. And in 1995, in our 6th year, as Cape Air started to be successful and profitable, because the first few years in any business, and an airline is no exception, more money is being poured into it than the business itself generates. So it took us a few years to be financially stable. But as we achieved that stability, it became more and more apparent that the success was being achieved at the front line, in the cockpit of the airplane, on the hangar floor with the mechanics, our frontline employees on the ramp and ticket counter. And we really, our heart and our values said, as we're successful, we really should share it. So, it's our employee ownership is really a reflection of the culture of the company, not the other way around. A lot of people come to me and say, gee, how does employee ownership work? And what I say to them usually is, it's a reflection of a culture that embodies sharing, shared prosperity with those who have made it a great company and made it successful. So we've been an employee-owned company now for 25 of the 30 years we've been in business.
Wow! And
it's really been a great part of our journey and of our success.
That's great. Now, how do you feel that correlates to kind of creating and recreating a motivated workforce?
I love these questions because we could do a whole day on employee ownership. So some of the tenets that go along in business with employee ownership are open book management, because after all, if the employees own the company, I think they have a right and we have an obligation to share how the company is doing operationally and financially. So we're very transparent with our employees and they understand it. Annually, our stock gets valued by an outside company. So it's not like we're on a stock exchange where it goes up and down. We get a valuation once a year, and then we communicate with our employees what their stock is worth, which is a really cool exercise, because they get a formal statement saying, here's what your stock is worth, here's how much you own on an annual basis. It fosters great communication and dialogue. So that employee ownership, I think, also embodies that you're learning best practices from your front line. And we get a lot of that at Cape Air. If somebody at a ticket counter in Boston or Hyannis or here on Nantucket has an idea about how we can serve the customer better or be a better place to work for the employees, they have a pipeline right to senior management, and we can very quickly integrate that into how we do our business. So employee ownership, it's about communication, it's about shared information, it's about empowering frontline employees and really integrating that into the business model. That should translate to the customer. Well, when you come to the airport here, you're actually getting served by somebody who's an owner.
Right.
And I actually think that makes a real difference as far as the employees owning the product that they're presenting to the customer. And I think it works really well. I encourage other businesses to think about it.
Yeah, well, it sounds good. I mean, I think when you talk about another key component of leading at a higher level is how do customers feel like doing business with Cape Air? You know, you're obviously in a tough business. There's a lot of things that are out of, you know, the employee's control, air traffic control, weather, you know, but yet they have to deal with that.
I could make a long list of things I wish we could control. The other thing is, you know, Cape Air is integrated into the air transportation system. So we are beholden to those relationships with major airlines if you're connecting in New York or if you're connecting in Boston. So the other thing we can't control is the schedule and the pricing of the other airline, of our airline partners. The weather, the air traffic control, very often, so there are just a lot of elements that are beyond our control. But it's part of the challenge that we love. Every day is different at an airline. It's sort of like a restaurant in some ways. Two of the most challenging businesses, I think, are the food service industry and the air transportation industry.
It's a good thing you're not serving food on your planes.
We have discussed it. We do have an in-flight meal. Have you seen our in-flight meal?
No, I have not.
It's a little box of mints.
Oh, good.
And we hand them out, and it just says Cape Air in-flight meal.
Nice. I've not seen that. I like that. Well, we're going to take a short break. This is Leading at a Higher Level, and today we're joined by Dan Wolf, CEO of Cape Air. We'll be right back.
Leading at a Higher Level Nantucket is brought to you by the Ken Blanchard Companies and FT Press, an imprint of the world's learning company, Pearson, whose mission is helping people make progress in their lives through learning. The new third edition of Ken Blanchard's Leading at a Higher Level is available at informate.com/Nantucket.
Welcome back to Leading at a Higher Level. This is Mark Forsyth, and today we're joined by Dan Wolf, CEO of Cape Air. So let's talk more about the customer experience, because, you know, as we said, there's things Cape Air can control and things that they cannot. Yet you have a great mantra, and I hope I get it right. It's Mocha Haggerty.
Mocha Haggerty. Very good.
Haggerty.
Very close.
Thank you.
It's Mocha Haggerty.
All right, so that's great. I mean, that's a vision probably that your frontline embraces and can remember. So what does it mean?
It embraces the esprit de corps at Cape Air, which is about our employees and about our customers. So it is make our customers happy and have a good time doing it. That's the acronym. Make our customers happy and have a good time doing it. Mocha Haggerty. And it's been around, Mocha Haggerty's been around for 25 years. When we rolled out the employee ownership 25 years ago, we did it with that mantra. And it took on, I thought it was going to be for one meeting. We'd just say Mocha Haggerty and that would be that. But it really got traction to the degree, Mark, where there are days when I'll be taking off from Logan Airport and the air traffic controller will say, you know, Cape Air 957, that's my call sign. You're cleared for takeoff, Mocha Haggerty. Have a good day. So it's infectious when you say it a few times. So it got traction, but it really embodies the service end, but also the internal culture side.
That's great. I'd love to, see more of the passengers use that. Especially I always get tickled when you land on Nantucket or you even come by the ferry and there's that spontaneous happiness that happens, like when you get off the plane. So maybe we should all say Mocha Haggerty.
Mike Wallace from 60 Minutes fame used to fly on Cape Air out to the Vineyard. And what he said one day, which I just loved, and I try to share that with our customers, is his vacation started at the Cape Air ticket counter.
Yeah, that's great.
And I really think there's an element of that. The experience on Cape Air should be one where you feel like you're at home again.
Yeah.
And we're sharing not only the passion of flight, but the passion we have for the regions that we serve.
Yeah.
And there's no prettier flight you could get on than to fly from Boston to Nantucket.
It's
if you think about it. You're flying over Cape Cod, the Cape Cod Bay, where you're going to see whales and fish and boats out there, and then you sort of go by Provincetown and you see that beautiful fishing, historic fishing village. You see all of Cape Cod, which is gorgeous, and then you're out over Nantucket Sound, and then you're down and coming into Nantucket, and it's beautiful. So we love to share not only the passion for flight, but where we're flying, and then the actual experience. And what we always say to each other as employees at Cape Air is every travel experience for our customer is something different. Some are going to weddings, some are going to joyous occasions, some are going to sad occasions. And each and every passenger that gets on our airplane is in the middle of a story, and we're a part of that story. And it's a responsibility, but it's also neat. You know, if you could write a book on every one of our customers' travel experience.
That's a lovely way to look at it. And you're right about the scenery. You know, people say, well, the planes are so small. I said, yeah, but you're flying at an elevation that you can see everything. And it is gorgeous.
Our flights almost always are between 5,000 and 10,000 feet. Between Nantucket and Hyannis, we're real low. We stay between 1,000 and 2,000 just because it's such a short flight. But generally, we're below 10,000 feet, which gives you great visibility. If you're going to some of our north markets, especially in the fall, Saranac Lake, Rutland, Vermont, Lebanon, New Hampshire, we do 3 or 4 destinations in Maine. It's just, you know, it's like almost worth buying a ticket to do a sightseeing.
Right, I was thinking of that. You could charge for that. Like, oh, wait, you do. That's right. Well, it's funny, too. I think people are kind of giddy either because they're nervous because they're going into a small plane or because they might be excited because of the story or they're, you know, heading to a beautiful place. But people do talk on your planes. You know, it is a funny reaction.
They get to know each other, and one of the neat things about the cockpit being open is, like, when I'm flying, I can get immediate customer feedback, but I'm also able to just share the experience. And it's just it's a gift.
Well, I have noticed your pilots like to engage, most of them. And there was one gentleman, he's like, you know, I used to fly New York to Tokyo. And he said, you know, that's one takeoff, one landing over a very long period. He's like, now I do so many stops and I can actually talk to customers. And he just loved it.
When I was younger, when we first started the business, I would do 11 round trips a day between Hyannis and Nantucket, 22 legs. And on a weather day, you'd be doing instrument approaches, 22 of them in a day. An airline pilot doing, like what you said, New York to Tokyo, they might do 22 approaches. No exaggeration. It might take them 5 years to do 22 instrument approaches. So that the experience that our pilots get is unique in their career, whether they're starting off or on the backside of their career. The guy you flew with probably was a retired airline pilot who had come back probably to his roots of doing this kind of flying. And probably thinking, why did I do all that big airplane stuff in the middle? This is so much fun.
So. And you still fly for the airline, right?
Every chance I get. I fly on Saturdays, and I fly where it all began. I do the Provincetown, Boston market usually, although occasionally I'll shoot out here to Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. I absolutely love it. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I go out to the airport just as the sun is coming up, and take off that first flight into the sunrise.
Beautiful.
And it's a pretty special thing.
That's a great way to stay close to the business, close to the employees, close to the passengers.
It's everything. I mean, I share that experience, as you said, with customers and employees, but I also get the passion of being able to fly, and I'm not paying for it, right? It's part of the business, and that's also kind of nice.
So, talking about you a little bit more, who are some of when you look back over your career, who are some of the key people in your life that really kind of shaped you as a leader? But it could also be things I learned in a negative context, like, oh, I never want to be like that person, but, you know, more in a positive influence.
You know, obviously on the negative side, everybody looks at Donald Trump and either says he's a negative influence or a positive influence. If you believe, I mean, my whole life has been about learning and being open and curious and embracing new cultures and new people and new ways of thinking. So that, you know, that's how I'm wired. And so anytime I see it sort of a calcified approach to the humanity that we are in, I think, yikes, that's not good. Now, I have had some positive mentors in my life, which my dad the first. I grew up in a home where my dad was a business person, real entrepreneur. He was the first guy to bring radio frequency technology into a library for both inventory control and theft protection, and then into the retail business. So a lot of the stores you see with checkpoint systems, security systems, that was a company he started in 1969. So I grew up at a dinner table listening to the stories of entrepreneurship, starting a business, you know, how you do that. And my mom was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and she taught American history, colonial American history. So I had a dinner table where I had a dad who I was kind of picking up the business side,
Yeah.
and a mom who instilled in me, I think, a deep sense of patriotism and public service. So my parents have been incredible role models. And then in business, the first job I had at the Chatham Airport after learning to fly there, the guy who owned the business was a small businessman, but really was about relationships with customers and employees, and I learned a lot from him. And then when we started Cape Air, one of the co-founders, who has since passed away, but a gentleman named Grant Wilson, was a real mentor for me, and I learned a lot from him. So I've just had some amazing role models and partners and friends and educators and teachers along the way. And then, of course, all of us on that journey through life, there are moments where we pick up a lot from the people that we learn from. So in aviation, in my career of public service, obviously when you go to work at the State House as a state senator, which I had the privilege of doing for 6 years, that's where John Adams was. Mm-hmm. That's where John Kennedy was. Yep. So to go there and be humble and open and realize that you're walking in the footsteps of people who literally built what I consider to be the greatest country in the history of the world, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So it's been an amazing learning experience. I'm 61 now, still learning, but I've had some great mentors.
That's wonderful. So what was it like when you're serving, you're a public servant on the Senate side versus you're a servant leader, on the CEO side? Was that a challenge for you? It
was a challenge, and I wish that I could do the Vulcan mind meld. Do you remember? And any Trekkie out there knows what that is, because one of the learning experiences I had was, you have people say, well, our government should run more like a business. Well, no, it actually shouldn't. I mean, a democracy is a deliberative body. It's a deliberative process. Things generally happen slowly and in an inclusive way. Whereas when you're running a business, even a business like ours, where we're very connected to the front line and very inclusive and listening and empowering frontline employees, you have to make decisions and you have to act on them in a much quicker way. So there's a decisiveness relative to leadership in the private sector running a business. Whereas if you're a servant leader in the public sector, it's really about exercising what I consider to be or call the civic expression of our collective will. So it's not me going there and sort of having my way. It's me understanding what the collective will in the district is that I serve. Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Cape Cod, what a district I represented. And then trying to take that into a deliberative legislative process, just very different than corporate. So people who say, gee, why can't government run more like a business? Have never really immersed themselves in the democracy that we're fortunate to have.
Right.
Both of those can be servant leaders, but servant leadership as a public servant and servant leadership as a corporate leader are really two different things.
Yeah. The will of the people versus the will of your ownership, essentially. Yeah.
What's neat is that employee ownership aligns interests, stakeholders, so that very often there's a tension between the shareholders and investors in a business who are looking at how much profit is being generated, and the employees who want to do better, and rightly so. When you align the interest by having the employees also owners, it's a really nice balance and sometimes a tension to have, because the better the business does, the better the owners do, and if the owners are employees, everybody's being rewarded.
Yeah, that's right. So running for Senate was obviously a key event in your life that shaped you as a leader. What were some other things that happened to you along the way that shaped you as a leader?
We haven't talked about family much, and my favorite restaurant on Cape Cod when I was coming of age was this restaurant in Chatham called the Impudent Oyster, and I loved that restaurant. And I finally one night I said, I have to meet the chef, and out walks this beautiful woman. And so that was our first date, unbeknownst to her. Our second date was I took her in a 172 down to the Bahamas. We flew down to the Bahamas.
That's a good second date.
It was a great second date, and it sort of sealed the deal. So we've been married now for going on 34 years. We have 3 incredible daughters, all of whom are in their 20s or early 30s. And my oldest is making me a grandfather in October.
Congratulations.
For the first time.
Yeah, a new co-pilot.
And you got it. I have amazing pictures of all of my daughters on their knees in the co-pilot seat.
That's great.
With their hands on the
training starts
controls.
early when you're a pilot.
It does. It does. So I mean, that's
wonderful.
That has been, that's the most important part of the journey, is being able to go home at night. I always ate well because she was a chef.
It sounds like it.
And just watching kids grow up, and it gives you a sense that we really do have a responsibility, whether the leadership is in the private sector or the public sector. I feel it even more now, knowing that I'm going to be a grandparent, that what is the world that we're handing off to our kids?
Yeah.
Is it a generous world? Is it a world where people can really exercise who they are as people, actualize what their visions and goals and dreams are? You see this through your kids, but by extension, you see it everywhere. And you just want this world to be as generous a world, as forgiving and understanding and inclusive and diverse as it possibly can be. And there's no better way to come to that than through a family. And watching kids come of age through their eyes, how do they see the world? So it's been an incredible journey.
That is eye-opening. That is. So you've got a lot going on the family side, and that's just absolutely fantastic. So what's on the business side? What's next for Cape Air?
We have a lot going on, Mark.
Yeah.
Some would argue too much. So we've got the new Italian airplane that over the next number of years are going to be replacing the 85 Cessna 402s in the fleet.
Yep.
We are in the seaplane business, looking finally for the dock in Boston. So we have 11 seaplanes, amphibious seaplanes. So Cape Air is now getting into the seaplane business.
Excellent.
We will, by next summer, you will be able to get on a seaplane at 23rd Street in the East River of New York and fly to Nantucket.
Wow.
So those customers that are now fighting their way to a New York airport to either fly directly here or to go through Boston and get here are going to be able to literally walk to 23rd Street Seaplane Dock and fly to Nantucket.
I know that terminal, and I just say, bring that on. That's going to be awesome.
So we have 11 seaplanes in the fleet that we are now gearing that up. And then the distant vision, and I would really, if I had something that I wanted to be my legacy in the industry or at Cape Air, it will be finally the integration of the electric airplane. We really want Cape Air to be the first airline to fly scheduled passenger service with an all-electric airplane. And we're partnering with a company called Eviation, is an Israeli company, but they're going to be setting up their manufacturer and a corporate headquarters here in the United States.
Excellent.
And hoping within the next 3 to 5 years that the prototype go to a production airplane, and the Cape Air is going to be the ticket of that. So we've got new airplanes coming from Italy to replace the 402. We've got the seaplane business. We've got the electric airplane. And we're looking for more growth opportunities. So there's a ton going on at Cape Air.
That's great. Well, I'm so glad you came on the show, and thank you for squeezing us in, because you're obviously a very busy man.
You can tell I love this. I apologize for almost not letting you get a word in edgewise, but I love doing this, and we are really blessed. So thank you for having us here.
No, my job is to listen to you. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mark.
This is Leading at a Higher Level Nantucket, and we'll see you next week.